Good morning. I'm Doug McCaleb. I'm Senior Policy Advisor for Rural Affairs here at the White House Domestic Policy Council. And it's so great to have Future Farmers of America, 4-H, ag educators here at the White House this morning. It's nice to see many friends in the group and many folks that we look forward to getting to know even better. For those of you, how many of you, this is your first visit to the White House, by a show of hands? Okay, actually a vast majority of you all. And I hope that you had a good tour this morning. No doubt you saw many treasures of America, some historic paintings, perhaps President Lincoln and others. Something that you wouldn't have seen on the tour that you went on, and I sure wish I could take each and every one of you over to see, is just outside the Oval Office in the West Wing. In fact, just between the Oval Office and the Cabinet Room is a painting on the wall from 1939 of wheat harvest from a place called Seneca, Kansas. And I walked past that painting this morning, and I looked at it, and as I often do, I thought of FFA and 4-H, and I thought about how in the midst of everything that is involved in operating the executive branch and running the government, how close rural America is to President Obama's heart and mind and the policies that he works on. We talked to the White House historian, and President Obama is the first president, to our knowledge, to ever have that painting just outside the Oval Office, and I think it's just a constant reminder of that passion and commitment. It also, I think, is a reminder of the relationship that we have built up over the years. I think it was very exciting to have 4-H and FFA be part of the White House Rural Summit that took place last year. It was the first Rural Summit in 16 years to take place in the U.S. We've had the pleasure of having many of your officers here at the White House for policy discussions and dialogue, and we want to continue that here this morning. I think as I also looked at the painting, and there's a old Massey Harris thresher combine in the painting and a steel-wheeled tractor. It's a constant reminder, I think, of changing agriculture in America and how different things look than they did 70 years ago and how different they will look in 70 years from now. And many of you will be the face of that change. Many of you will lead that change through technology, STEM education, through the future of what agriculture will look like. And I think that's very exciting for us. That's why we're here this morning. We want to hear more about your experiences, to have a dialogue with key members of the administration and key members of our team here at the White House. And there's perhaps no more important member of the White House's rural team than someone you're all very familiar with, Secretary Tom Vilsack, and we want to show you a brief message from Secretary Vilsack right now.
Hello, everybody. On behalf of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, I want to thank you for your leadership of 4-H and FFA. FFA and 4-H each have a long history of giving our young people the tools they need to achieve big things. And today your work is more important than ever before. Even in the face of an historic drought, one that I know is impacting many of you, your families, and your friends, American agriculture is helping drive our economy forward. Ranchers and farmers are innovating, using the latest science and making the smart business decisions that help us keep agriculture strong. Today, you're helping to carry out the tradition of innovation. You're helping to train America's next generation of conservation stewards. You're helping to ensure that America can feed the world in the generations to come. And perhaps most importantly of all, you're getting young people from all walks of life, from our smallest towns to our biggest cities, engaged in the business of agriculture. At USDA, we're taking more steps than ever to help. We've strengthened cooperative extension programs through USDA's National Institute of Food and Agriculture. We implemented the Beginning Farmer and Rancher Development Program, which has provided grants to train tens of thousands of new producers. And we've expanded marketing opportunities for farmers and ranchers of all sizes through the Know Your Farmer, Know Your Food effort. In partnership with FFA and the Department of Education, USDA has made new efforts to protect and advance important agricultural education programs while expanding distance learning programs across rural America. And today, we work closely with both FFA and 4-H to ensure that the work on the farm is safe for our young people, while also enabling children to continue learning the values of hard work, which stand at the heart of our rural values. Meanwhile, we've carried out record accomplishments to help rural America thrive: record farm and rural housing loans, record efforts for rural broadband and community facilities, record support for rural businesses, and record investments in the growing bio-based economy. But the fact is, we can't do it without you. With your help, we'll continue to drive the rural economy forward, creating and saving more good-paying American jobs. And together, we'll further the cause of rural values that stand again at the heart of our American values: So again, thank you for your service and congratulations on being selected as a White House Champion of Change. Please enjoy today's events and never hesitate to reach out to USDA staff to help you in your next endeavors.
We appreciate that message from the Secretary, and as he said, we can't do it without you. We need your passion and your commitment to change for the future. You put your head, hands, heart, and health into your work. You represent the future of American agriculture and the future of this nation. We're so excited that you are here as champions of change this morning. As I mentioned, you're going to have the opportunity to dialogue with, and we're going to hear from our champions. We're going to have a chance to discuss key policies with the members of the administration's team, and I'm going to introduce two of them to come forward and serve as moderators for our first panel. I'll ask the two of them to please come forward, and then they're going to introduce our champions for this morning. The first is Dr. Woteki, who serves as the Undersecretary at the USDA for Research, Education, and Economics. She's also the Chief Scientist of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Her oversight responsibilities including working on REE issues, the Ag Research Service, National Institute of Food and Agriculture, the Economic Research Service, and also the National Ag Statistics Service. She also has the oversight for the National Ag Library and the National Arboretum, which if you haven't been to the Arboretum, I would really encourage each and every one of you to visit there. It's just a national treasure of America. Dr. Woteki received her Master's of Science and PhD in Human Nutrition from Virginia Polytechnic Institute, and Dr. Woteki received her BS in Biology and Chemistry from Mary Washington College. Our second moderator for this morning is John White. John is someone who we work with actually on the White House Rural Council established by President Obama. He's the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Rural Outreach at the Department of Education, where he works to implement education reform and innovation in rural America. John White is responsible for leading the Department of Education's outreach to schools and colleges throughout rural America. He is a graduate of the University of Maryland, so just a warm welcome for the two of them here. We're really happy that they can be our moderators for this morning, and again, they're going to introduce our first panelists for our Champions event.
Great. Well, thank you, Doug, and good morning, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. It's always so exciting to go to the White House, and particularly on a day like today when we're honoring individuals who have already made really substantial contributions to their communities. I am a true believer in the power of individuals and that having a vision of how you can contribute in your community and in your country, or even globally, is a great gift and vision to have. And acting on that vision, the way that this group of young people that are here today have done, really gives inspiration for all of us. So we're just delighted to be able to recognize some champions for change. And let me ask my colleague if you'd like to make some opening comments, and then we'll introduce our champions of change.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Woteki. Let me just begin by expressing the support that Secretary of Education Arne Duncan has for your programs. He works very closely with Secretary Vilsack to strengthen education, but also agriculture education across the country. Our two departments actually are working together on that specific agenda as we speak, and we're actually working across agencies to do so. But I can tell you from my experience being with Secretary Duncan when he has met with FFA and 4-H members, he's attended your national conferences, that he comes back not just energized from your enthusiasm, but he comes back with new knowledge and things for us to do. So we appreciate your teaching us when we have a chance to work with you. And we're here today to hold you up as examples and hold you up for other people to learn from and to emulate. So thank you for letting us join you today.
Great. I'd like to ask Jacob Dickey, Caden Ency, and Chamonix Mejia to come up and join us here at the front table.
And I'd like to ask Ridge Howell, Jordan Payne, and Natia Patel to join us.
Well, I'd like to start off by introducing Caden Ency. He's 17 years old from Washington County, Utah. And Caden has been very active in 4-H for 9 years, in livestock, shooting sports, and service leadership projects. And after a large company, a tech-oriented company in the county, decided not to expand their operations, Caden was interested in finding out why, what was holding them up. And he looked into that and found that one of the barriers that the company had was access to people with technological skills. So Caden, you want to make some opening remarks?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Caden Nance. I'm from St. George, Utah. It's at the very bottom corner of Utah, like an hour away from Vegas. And I do livestock showing and shotgun shooting. I compete all around the country. And I did this service project to better help my community. And this large tech company came to St. George, and they decided not to expand their operations because we didn't have enough people with technological skills to fulfill their quota. So I decided to start a Lego robotics club and to teach the youth of my community to learn how to program and to build robots at a younger age, because I think if we get kids interested at a younger age, that they'll be able to stick with it and probably go to college and pursue a career in that. And technology is so good to help us in everything. It helps us in everyday life that we do now. Pretty much you can't go anywhere without seeing some kind of technology in the world. And so I'd like to thank everybody that's helped me get here, and for the USDA for presenting this award to me, and I'm going to keep continuing this program to help the youth of my community.
Thank you, Caden.
So I'd like to introduce to you Ridge Powell. He is a Native American citizen of the Creek Nation who not only combines his time working with the tribe, but also supports the elderly in his community, and has been very entrepreneurial in his service projects as well to his community. And I'd like to let him explain to you some of the work that he's been doing.
Hello everyone, my name is Ridge Howell. I'm a senior in my hometown of Chakota, Oklahoma, and I'm also my local FFA chapter president and student body head. Everything I work towards in my community deals with leadership training and trying to make myself a better and more service-oriented person, while hopefully helping others become the same. There's two distinct groups that I work with, my fellow FFA members and the senior citizens in my town. And farther than that, I have, I guess, kind of a partial group. I love working with the seniors. I feel like I can learn most from those who have already experienced so much themselves, and hopefully by hanging around them and helping them, I can gather something that might help me in my later life. There's two primary programs that I've helped develop and run. The first one is a senior citizens lawn mowing program. What we do on this, it's active during the summer. It has been for about 3 summers. And every week we go to the senior citizens center, myself and a few of my FFA members, and we draw 2 names. And that week we'll go and mow the lawns of those people and help them just with whatever they need, because there's usually many household chores that they need just to help out with. This past summer we've had many deaths of spouses, and it's brought on a whole lot more lawns for us to mow, but at the same time it's helped bridge a gap between the FFA members and the seniors in my town. I feel like it's really helped me, and I know my fellow members, just become a better person. Whenever somebody else is in pain, you can often do a whole lot to help them with something simple, just like mowing the lawn. I've done a lot of lawn mowing, I will say that. The second program has been in production for about 7 months. It's a community garden. It was actually from a Food for All grant that we got from National FFA. To date, we've picked 1,700 pounds of produce, which is, I think, outstanding. It's a good solid 50 of my FFA members and my ag teachers have helped grow it. It's still in production, and what we do is take it down to the Senior Citizen Center where it's distributed among the seniors. And yes, they get really violent over it. It surprises me, but those squash are really important. And it's actually really key in my town, in the whole area that I'm from. I'm centered in beef production. There's not a whole lot of production agriculture. This was a way to introduce production agriculture at the ground zero. Hopefully through this we can take Oklahoma to a better, bigger, more production agriculture state. Even though beef production is really important, I think it'll just help diversify the state in general. Agriculture is close to my heart. I've been really active in it, several generations, and that's all put together why I love the FFA so much. It gives everybody a chance to change. Change is what we need. If without change, we would just be a still country. Through change, through positive change, we can stay ahead. We can help other nations. And I think the FFA is the best way to do that, and it's a passion of mine. I really love it. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to introduce Jacob Dickey. He's from Illinois, and for this past year, he's been serving as the FFA Section 17 president. So you've had a busy year this year. As part of his duties in this role, he was put in charge of hosting a workshop on leadership called the Leadership Training School. And he had some ideas about how to transform that activity and make it a much more active and contributory opportunity. So he redesigned the Leadership Training School and incorporated a service component into it. He got some sponsorship from a large corporation, Coca-Cola, and some local businesses, and developed a rain barrel project, which I hope you're going to tell us about.
I will.
Okay. And all of this has led to a year-long activity. Living to Serve is the name of the campaign, which I think is just a wonderful encapsulation of a leadership principle. So, Jacob Dickey, you're up.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone for coming today. I'm really excited to be here. The first thing I wanted to kind of mention is I noticed in the program it said that it was the future farmers of America. And I couldn't help to think to myself, back in 1988, as us FFA members know it, it changed to the National FFA Organization to encompass the diversity that we as agriculture students have. And I couldn't help but think that we are still the future farmers of America, but we're also the future business leaders, the future chemists, the future teachers, the future legislators. We're the future of America ourselves. And that was one thing that kind of inspired me way back when I put on that jacket for the first time to really find innovative ways to get members excited. And so that was just one thing I kind of noticed and made me reflect back on. It was a little bit about my program and what I did. It started, I was a 2011 Coca-Cola Scholars recipient, and so that was really where the connection started. And I was able to network with people from across the country, and we put on a leadership training school, which was one of my requirements, but I wanted to go above and beyond that. And so we decided to do a year of service, living to serve. We took the last phrase of the FFA motto, learning to do, doing to learn, earning to live, living to serve, and we ran with that. So we ended up sponsoring the Special Olympics chapter in our area, and we had members come in, and we did several projects that helped benefit and raise money for them, as well as excite the members to live a year of service and to give back to the community. And the one that you had mentioned was the Rain Barrel Project, and that project, the FFA members, we came in and we took just 50-gallon food drums, and we painted them in all kinds of colors. I was amazed at how FFA members with spray paint cans, how artistic we ended up being. So we're future artists too as well. But so it was really, really neat, the projects that came out of it and the work that the students put in, and it was interactive as well. Not only the Rain Barrel projects, the efforts that went into them, we made 32 of them, and that saves 80,000 gallons of water a year when they're put into place. And so it was also an environmental project as well. And what we did is we ended up selling those rainbows off, and all of the money we made from that went to the Special Olympics chapter. And we continued through the year and hosted events. We did Special Olympics Days of Service and worked with athletes side by side and had FFA members pair up with them. We hosted a 5K walk run with the FFA at the University of Illinois as well and did different programs at then. So we brought all kinds of people together, and it was really amazing to see how everything turned out. And in my section, my duties, I reached over 1,000 agriculture education students. So that was really inspiring to see the change that we had there. I guess in closing, for me, FFA and agriculture education has really been the jewel of my life. It's been the focus that I've learned so much from, and it's given me life experiences that I'll forever be thankful for. All of us in the room have been touched by agricultural education, whether it be 4-H or the FFA. And I think it's something that in the future, it's up to us to give back to the organizations that we've taken so much from and that have changed our lives. And I'm going to be an agriculture educator someday. I want to teach students just as my agriculture teachers have inspired me, and just give back to the organization that does so much to the lives of students across the country. Thank you.
So Jordan Payne actually can be claimed by FFA and 4-H. Like many young people, she's in both programs and doing extraordinary things in both programs. In Nebraska, in her school and community, she's very active and actually creative. I have to applaud her and her parents because she's developed a program where young people in her community that live in or near her town can actually keep their calves at her house. I'm sure my parents would have probably asked me to take some of my things to my friends' houses when I was growing up. But she does a great job of keeping them and letting them come feed their animals and learn from the 4-H program. At the same time, in the FFA, she's developed a school garden program and agriculture, helped with the agriculture program at her school, and I want to give her the chance to tell you more about her work.
Good morning. Like you said, I'm highly involved in both 4-H and FFA. But I'm going to start with a little bit of my work in 4-H. For the past 5 years, I've served as my club's president. We've been basically involved in getting kids in agriculture, but also getting them to be involved in service throughout the community. We've put a lot of our time and efforts not into so many projects, but actually working in the community and helping the community that gives so much to us. But like you said, I started a youth bucket calf program in my community because the bucket calf show was dying out, and therefore the beef show was dwindling and dwindling as no members were growing older and showing the larger beef cattle. Basically, it was anyone who wanted to be a part of agriculture but didn't have the facilities or their family didn't have the time or money, I would buy bucket calves, and as long as they came and worked with them, they had the chance to actually raise a bucket calf themselves and then show it at the county fair. Throughout the years, more and more kids got involved, and then parents started to believe in the program, believe in that ag aspect of it, and they have now been raising them themselves and on their own. So it's turned quite full circle. But then also with 4-H, I've served on the 4-H Council in Furnace County, and we've been making improvements in gaining membership throughout the county and actually building new facilities to encompass all the gaining 4-H members we have. And then something special Nebraska has in 4-H is the Nebraska Youth Curriculum Committee, which probably none of you here really know what that is. It's actually youth members who work to help write and edit the 4-H curriculum that students receive to do their projects. As many of you in 4-H know, the manuals are sometimes out of date and also out of date and out of touch with the students. So we go in there on the pre-written stuff and actually change the content so it applies more directly to the youth. Now, as much as I love 4-H, I was diehard against FFA when I first heard about it, and I thought no organization could beat 4-H. But then my counselor at my school talked me into joining FFA, giving it a try, and there's absolutely no organization I could love more. I completely fell in love with FFA, and it has become actually even more of a passion for me. Through my chapter, it's grown since I've been a member and taken office. We've gotten more kids involved in agriculture, actually, because although we're from a rural setting, not that many kids had actually ever worked with livestock or worked on a farm or knew that much about it. So we've implemented 2 programs last year that have really helped students be able to do hands-on agriculture instead of just learning the concepts in the class. We developed a school farm, which is on 10 acres of ground and is ran by a subsurface drip irrigation system. This also allows students to connect with the local farmers because they're actually the ones running the machines and teaching the kids what we need to do. And it's been a great way to connect the local farmers and the FFA members to create a more well-working, rounded relationship. The other project was a goat herd. Sounds a little silly, but our chapter, who had never had any goat background, purchased a goat herd, and we've been learning a lot, and we've been doing the testing on the pregnancy checking in goats. And so we've been doing a lot of the research side, which many FFA members, if any, had never had any experience in the research side of agriculture. So that's been a great opportunity. And this year we're actually working on building a greenhouse to develop an even bigger research facility for our members and another diversified agriculture facility for our members. Because like they said, FFA isn't just about farming. It's the whole encompass of agriculture. All the contests we do really show that agriculture is not just farming. I just think agriculture in a whole and 4-H and FFA is the absolute prime place for students to be to develop a better world. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to introduce Chamonix Mejia. And Chamonix is from Texas. She's a high school student. She's also doubled down on 4-H and FFA. And she really epitomizes one of my favorite quotations. George Washington Carver once said, "It's simply service that defines success." And Chamonix has been president in Webb County of 4-H Council and the Mesquite Rangers 4-H Club. She's a member of the Texas 4-H State Technology Team, the National Wildlife Habitat Evaluation Program, Texas State Committee, the State Shooting Sports Ambassador. She's shown animals. She has over 300 hours of documented community service. I think that there's also a scholar in Chamonix, in that she's on the National Honor Roll, member of the National Honor Society, and she's participating in a Discover Scientific Methods scholarship. She's a recipient of that scholarship. So, Chamonix, your turn up.
Yes. Hi, my name is Chamonix Mejia. Like she said, I'm from Laredo, Texas. I'm a senior at United High School. And I'm also in 4-H and FFA, but my heart is definitely into 4-H. I've been in it for 11 years, so basically all my life, and as far back as I can remember. And I've done a lot of things. I've done a lot of different projects throughout 4-H, but one of my main passions in 4-H is the shooting sports program. Like she said, I'm part of the Shooting Sports Ambassadors program. And nowadays you hear a lot of kids who come across firearms, and so many accidents end up happening. It's terribly sad because, I mean, even my own hometown, there's so many accidents. And that has made me want to become a shooting sports ambassador, and also I'm a 4-H certified team small bore coach, and I'm also NRA certified. And I became I took up that responsibility because I wanted to make a difference in the lives of those kids who have come across firearms and didn't know how to handle them correctly. And I've been doing that for the past 4 years, so I've been really just trying to get that message across. And one of the other things that I do is a lot of community service, like she said. And since my passion is shooting sports, I kind of combined it with soldiers and veterans because, you know, when you think of firearms, you usually think of them too. And one of my community service projects that I've done for the past 4 years is I've gone to the local Veterans Affairs Clinic, and I've donated goodie bags, and I've thanked the veterans that are there because without them, we wouldn't be where we are today. And I've also sent letters overseas to the soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan, and I've also sent them goodie bags. And because it's true, you can never thank them enough for giving them this opportunity. I mean, we wouldn't be here celebrating 4-H and FFA if it wasn't for them. So that's one of my main goals in 4-H. And I want to thank everyone who put this on, and congratulations to every champion of change, because it takes a lot of work to be here. So thank you.
So I want to introduce Nita Patel from 4-H New Jersey. And let me just begin by saying that this description is close to my heart. One of the things we try to think about at the Department of Education is how do we overcome the barrier of distance, for rural communities? How do we leverage technology to increase opportunity, right? So Nita thought about this in a global context, and many people outside of this room may not realize that FFA and 4-H actually do work domestically and internationally. So Nita, after graduating high school last year, took a year and went to Ghana to try to work with the community there. And obviously one of the first things that she wanted to do was try to empower them by teaching them about computers. But without a computer or a lab, how do you do that? So she led an extraordinary fundraising effort to begin that foundational approach to establishing a computer lab, to opening up the world to these students. And I'd like to let her tell you more about her adventure.
Hi, I'm Nita. I'm 19 years old and I'm from Blackwood, New Jersey. And I'm also a first-year student at Princeton University. So I guess that my involvement in community engagement and community service started with 4-H. I became involved in 4-H throughout middle school, and I became a general member at first of our sewing club because I was really interested in sewing and I wanted to learn more. I found the club to be a really creative outlet, and as I formed close relationships with my 4-H leader and the other kids in the club, I decided to stay with it. So over the years, I eventually became a 4-H team leader to volunteer and work with the kids, the younger generations that were trickling in. So as a team leader, I worked with my 4-H leader and also started a gourmet club, which was essentially just a supper club. We met once a month and cooked different cuisines from around the world. And it was a really nice way for us to share our diversity and also provided a safe and comfortable place for kids to come on a Friday night. So junior and senior year of high school, after all this involvement in 4-H, I decided to become an AmeriCorps member. And I served my 4-H program through AmeriCorps. Did a lot more youth programming and learned about how to organize events and things of that nature. And also we resurrected our 4-H teen council in Camden County, which basically focused on involving more high school students in community engagement. So all of these service activities I was involved in ultimately inspired me to take a gap year after high school, like you said. And I traveled to Ghana, West Africa, where I lived for 9 months. And the first half of my program I lived in the capital city and worked for NGOs, and in the second half I lived in the rural village and I taught the computer classes at a middle school. And working in Ghana was an incredible experience. I'd go back in a heartbeat. But it really opened my eyes as to the opportunities service can provide and the different forms it takes on and what service really means.
Well, we're going to change the format now a little bit. My colleague, Assistant Secretary White, and I are going to ask some questions of our champions of change, and I'm going to start off. There's been a thread of education and science that's gone through all of your activities, and what do you see as being the biggest barrier to getting your fellow students as interested and engaged in either science or education? So we'll start with you, Caden. You were first up.
Okay. The way I got kids interested is we were building Lego robots, and a lot of kids like to play with Legos, and so they're like, oh, we gotta go build robots with Legos? Sweet. And so I was working with youth kids. It was from like 9-year-olds to like 15-year-olds usually is the oldest we had, and it really grew really fast. Like one club grew into like 10 clubs, and now we have over 100 kids interested in it. And we have Lego competitions, and because we design the robots, you design a different robot for different tasks. and they would have competitions, and you'd have to do different tasks. And so kids would bring their friends. I'm like, yeah, you can bring your friends and get them interested, because if you get everybody in the community interested in it, I think you're more likely, and you get them talking about it, they're more likely to come and stick around. And once they came once, they usually came back, and they really loved it.
Yeah. So start with something they liked, huh?
Yeah, start with something they like and they're like interested in. If you get them interested, because I didn't really know too much, but I learned myself. Like, I got interested in it, and it was really fun to like build robots and program them to do different things. And like it was like a little competition between the kids. We would have like every Friday we would have the kids try to compete it like against each other, and they would try to do little challenges. We're like, come on, because they would do all different kinds of stuff. There was this one challenge where you had to put like a little needle on with like an arm, and you'd have to pop a balloon, but you'd have to program it to go so many rotations on the table. And so it would go through like all these little buildings. We would build buildings with blocks and stuff. And so if you knock down the building, that would minus your points. And so they would really try to knock down the buildings. And some of them would just like to run over the buildings. And so you'd have to like teach them. So it was fun.
Good. Ridge, you're nodding. You
I
agree?
I kind of look at it from a different perspective. The best way from my point of view to go into it is it's not science. There's so many kids that are discouraged by school because they aren't visual and they aren't auditory. They don't learn by seeing something or hearing something. They need to touch something. And what I'm thinking of is plant and soil science. In my hometown, we have a greenhouse. Science is every part of that greenhouse. Without science, the greenhouse does not exist. Through the greenhouse, we can take our classes, we can go out, they can touch, they can see how things grow. It's a hands-on job, and so many kids, it's been a big issue in my school, need something that they can touch to learn about it. And it provides the perfect scenario for so many kids to learn, and they're learning science in a practical level. They'll be able to go outside of school and use this. And so I think the way to approach it is not science, it's everyday, it's something that you could use every day.
Nita, what was your experience in Ghana?
Yeah, so very different culture-wise and just experience-wise. So one of the main barriers I faced in teaching my students was, like many of us alluded to, is just getting them interested and understanding how it's applicable to their lives outside of the classroom. So it was really interesting because my students never had access to resources like computers or any sort of technology, except mobile phones were becoming very widespread because of telecommunications companies that are emerging. So all of my students knew someone who had, a little Nokia phone with the pay-as-you-go plan. And without even telling them how it works, they could easily, with limited data access, go onto Facebook and figure out how it functioned and things like that. So to kind of teach them how, computers can open this sort of entire new world of networking and, possibilities outside of the rural village, outside of farming for a living, and just to really open their eyes to what's out there is what got them most interested, and to show them that, anything really is possible.
Good. Anybody else have anything you want to jump in on, or should we move to a new question?
Kind of with what Ridge was saying, I think that we can categorize 4-H and FFA into a career and technical education, kind of the overall thing. And I think what career and technical education has over your traditional subjects such as math and science is that it's that application towards using your basic education and applying it to different things in life. I didn't learn in ag business, or I didn't learn in math class how to do accounting and things like that for my farm management or things like that. I learned the basics of math, but I was able to take that knowledge and apply it into that. And it's just taking that basic application and going the next step with it and finding ways that students can, they get that light bulb above their head there, and they're able to realize how they can apply it to their everyday lives.
Yeah. I just have one quick thing to add. I don't think it's one separate thing that we have to focus on to get them in, because each and every one of us is different. Each and every one of us is inspired to do something for a different reason. So I think you have to work with the science part, with the application process, with convincing them to join because their friends are in it, or all the opportunities you get. You have to hit it from absolutely every aspect possible, because it's going to be something different for every individual is why they're there. And so we need to use all of the different possibilities.
Chamonix, the last word on this question?
I think what everyone's saying is very true, and I think a quote that kind of goes with this, that one of the organization's motto that I work with is, tell me I forget, show me I remember, and involve me and I understand. And I think that stands very true for kind of crossing that barrier and overcoming it. So.
Good. Good thought to end on.
So Jacob brought up a great point about career and technical education. At the department, we're trying to raise standards in career and technical education across the country. And one of the things that we continually hear is this perception issue. So how do we get more students involved instead of them feeling as though CTE is for those kids, or maybe FFA or 4-H is for not for me, it's for those students. So I'd like to hear more from the students involved about how you go about trying to expand your membership. What works for you in your schools? How does it, not just with students, but how do you work with adults in your schools, and what do you tell them about the perception issue and the positive, how we turn that into a positive?
Well, fun activities are always a good way to bring people in. That's something that, it's like an eye catcher. If a group's doing something fun, you want to go and be a part of it. So that is definitely one way that my chapter uses to bring people in. But kind of bouncing off our first question, you can take these career and technical educations and apply them to life. I know in math, Pythagorean theorem is something huge. It's on the ACT, it's on the SAT. It's a crucial part in learning. This past 2 months, we've been building a 25-foot-long tilt bed hay trailer in our shop class. You have to use Pythagorean theorem to make sure all the angles are correct. Without Pythagorean theorem, the trailer might be crooked, the axle might not be corrected right. So it's a way for kids to learn and then go back and help them in school, because that's something so crucial that you use, and we can use it every day. And another reason kids are so frustrated is because they don't think that they can take these things that they're learning in math or science or English and apply them to everyday life, but there's so many ways they can, they just don't know. And I think that's a great way to bring kids in, is it's just going to help them in a fun way.
I think specifically like for membership, gaining membership, is you have to know the individual that wants to be involved or could be involved if they only knew it was there. You have to identify a contest or an area of agriculture that they might not even think is part of agriculture, find an FFA area for them and tell them about it, and then they want to do something that they already like to do when they're starting a new project, and finding something that connects with things they already know in a contest type situation just broadens their aspect of that specific thing. And then they can develop further out into agriculture. And once they are in FFA, it's kind of hard to get out. You fall in love with all the contests and you keep trying more and more contests, and that's how you develop the perception of agriculture through the students. But then as faculty, I think just having members go in and talk to the administration and faculty, let them know what's going on, the opportunities we're getting, they'll become much more supportive. At least that's how it's been working in my school, because I rarely go to school, and it's kind of hard to explain to faculty why I'm always gone for FFA or 4-H. But then when they hear about the opportunities, they become much easier to deal with, and their perception increases of the two organizations.
I think that one of the biggest barriers that we see in career and technical education is the enormous emphasis on college prep and the minimalization of the career technical education. We've been told so many times in high school and when we sign up for classes that we need to get our English classes and our math classes and our science classes, and those have benefits. I'm not pushing those down at all, but when you can apply those into classes and find what students' niches are in their education and what they love to do, and they can take that through the rest of their life, I think that's the benefit there. And just working with that push there, the students, for instance, for the requirements for graduation in my high school, they've been raising them ever so often, and that's been preventing students from having opportunities to get involved in organizations such as the FFA or the Home Ec Club or even Art Club, things that they love to do because they're required to take their 4 years of English and they're required their 4 years of math. And I think that's just personally the biggest barrier that we face.
So one of the main goals of resurrecting the Teen Council in my 4-H program was to get more community involvement and high school student involvement in general. And it was actually pretty simple because community service is such a universal concept, and it was just a matter of getting that message out there. And so as we started to get more members into Teen Council, at first it was trickling in really slow, of course. But once we got the message out that, community service is really a rewarding experience, and explaining how there's different forms of service, and you don't have to be completely devoted to it. It can be a lifelong sort of continuous community service where you're doing a little bit every now and then, or it can be something a little more intense. So just getting that message out there that there's something for everyone really helped get more involvement in our program.
I think if you get kids interested, if like hands-on programs, I always love working with my hands and doing community service, and then just going and talking to your teachers and stuff. If you ever, in my school, if you have a problem, you go talk to the teachers, they're like more like likely to help you. They're like, oh yeah, just come in after school and we'll help you. So you got to communicate and tell like your teachers, because they can't really read your mind. That's what they always like. My teachers are always like, ask a question, you have it. Just interrupt me, because they really do want to teach you. So if you just communicate and help the kids achieve, they like to get, they want to work with you. They're there to be like your friends and mentors and stuff. So.
And I think so many of my friends, when I tell them, oh, I'm going to go to a 4-H event, they're like, oh, you're going to do something with livestock, or you're going to go show something, and it's like, no. 4-H encompasses so much more than that. I mean, we have photography, shooting sports, food and nutrition, the clothing and textiles. And there's so many more different things that you can do in 4-H. And I know that's one thing that I always do, is I explain to my friends, like, there's so much more you can do than just livestock and shop stuff. And I think that's where it kind of gets them more like, oh, okay, maybe I'll check it out, maybe I'll join, because there's so much more. And these projects can lead you to your career, and they can help you define what you want to do for the rest of your life. And I think that's one of the biggest things that's in 4-H.
I have one quick question. You can only use a couple of words to answer it because we're running out of time, but you all did a tour of the White House this morning, right? Was there something that you saw that you particularly liked in 5 words or less, Chamonix, that really spoke to you, a portrait or something you saw?
JFK's portrait where he's looking down. And
Jacob?
5 words. I want to live there.
Okay, we've got a goal. Caden.
5 words. I really liked the tour. It was really interesting, and I would live there with you.
Ridge, something you saw?
Architecture, wainscoting, and more architecture.
Jordan?
I think the architecture shows from our past to our present and just brings it all together, like the States.
I'd have to say the coffee urn in the Red Room.
All right, good. Well, I'll share with you my favorite. It's the Eleanor Roosevelt portrait. And across the bottom, there are these little insets of her hands. So it's she was always doing something, knitting or reading a book, and that's my favorite portrait because I think it really kind of captures an aspect of all of us. We do so much with our hands. We talk with our hands. I do. But that's my favorite. Anyway, you all are wonderful, wonderful young people. We wish you much success in everything that you take on. And I have confidence that we're, over this next 40 years when we're facing these huge challenges in agriculture here in the U.S., that we're going to have some real leaders helping us through it. So congratulations to all of you.